All right, well, we got to make bold predictions, John, so what do you got laid on the table?
I wouldn't be entirely surprised to see Trump bring the Druid out as a starting play. Like that.
There you are, and actually it's going to be both the decks that we know from these two players, so clearly they're trying to hide something right now. As you can see, Trump running with his Druid, Artosis running with the Paladin. Let's take a look at the opening draws. Starfire, Keeper of the Grove, and Novice Engineer out there for Trump. Obviously he's going to ditch a couple of those cards there. Starfire is a little bit too high mana cost right now to be able to run.
Yeah, I mean, this is a nice hand, really, for both players. They're not going to have to mulligan too much. I'd maybe keep hold of the Keeper of the Grove because that deck that he's running doesn't have a huge amount of silence in it. It's always nice to have that. Even though you can't play the Keeper of the Grove early on, it's nice to know that it's in your hand. Yeah. You don't have to toss everything in your hand to hope that you get 1 and 2 drops. The Novice Engineer, obviously, I'd hold on to that. He is going first, which means that he will have to wait till turn 2 to deal with it. But now, of course, they're going to mulligan. And we're going to see actually a large mulligan from both players here. For those of you who don't know, you're able to throw away cards from your hand and gain other cards, but you can only do it once and you have to accept the second result. So the Imp Master's going to stay, the Novice Engineer is going to stay, and then we're going to see entirely new hands aside from that. Sylvanas Windrunner and an Assured Drake, and
Okay, so this is actually interesting because as you notice, Artosis actually got rid of his Argent Protector because he only had an Imp Master, and throwing a Divine Shield on Imp Master doesn't make a lot of sense necessarily. It's going to be constantly doing damage to itself, etc. Artosis is now going to be on the play, and he is going to go out and throw out that first coin knife juggler.
Absolutely. He goes second, so that means he gets the coin, which is a single mana boost, which allows you to kind of catch up. It's designed as an equalizing mechanic between going first and second. He plays a knife juggler first. He has a second knife juggler sitting in his hand right now. However, top deck of the Claw right there, which I would expect Trump to just go right at him with that, but he's going to go Novice Engineer instead. That's okay too, because he knows there's not going to be enough knives coming out to actually kill that Novice Engineer immediately. Also gives him a card and the draw there. And I think we will see a second knife juggler coming out. There it is. So that's going to throw a knife. Every time a minion is played, a knife will be thrown by the knife juggler. You have no idea what it's going to hit, but of course you can make a prediction. All right, 2 knife jugglers out in the field already. Claw available. Second Novice Engineer is a possibility as well. And he's going to play the second Novice Engineer. Will he decide to claw here?
I hope he does, because 2 knife jugglers on the board right now is too much damage to be able to deal with, even with the deck that we see Trump bringing right now. So he's just going to swing in for 1 damage to Artosis' face, make sure he takes out 1 knife juggler as well, and he weakens Artosis' board just a little bit while only committing card draw minions.
All right, so turn 3, here we go. Imp Master is a definite possibility here. It seems like the most logical play. Doesn't really need to worry too much about that. At the end of every turn, that Imp Master is going to lose 1 health and summon an Imp. Very nasty in a deck like this when you can buff those Imps, but a Sword of Justice isn't out in the field yet, so that's not going to happen. Another knife gets thrown out. That takes that down to 1-1 there. Nice, easy clear. I mean, knife jugglers in general trade very, very well, especially against weak minions like that.
Definitely.
So we're going to be seeing some nice damage coming out already. Artosis does have the slight lead in terms of health. Just bear in mind this. It seems nice to be able to do early damage, but there's a lot of decks that kind of burn out pretty quickly if all you're doing is throwing cards at your opponent and hoping for the best.
And I want to mention here that there were a couple of different plays for Artosis available there. Knife Juggler, because of the Imp that actually pops out at the end there from the Imp Master, will proc the Knife Juggler 1 more time. Unfortunately, it doesn't get that lucky hit on the Novice Engineer that would have gone down.
Hard to rely on that, really.
Yeah, it is, because he had a 33% chance, and that's not necessarily reliable. So he decides to take the play of doing a little bit more direct damage there. There were other possibilities. He could have swung into 1 Novice Engineer and then hoped for the 50% chance from the Imp that came out the end to completely clear his opponent's board, but that's very risky, and that's leaving a lot up to chance.
Yeah, you don't want to really be tossing coins at this stage of the game. All right, so for Trump at this point, he could go for the Shattered Sun Cleric, which would be a 1-1 boost to anything on the field, but ultimately that still doesn't trade amazingly well while that Knife Juggler is still there. So I expect that he's going to Wrath something, and he's actually going to go after that and then knock that over. I like that a lot. That's a pretty good thing. Yeah, he knows that Novice Engineer is going to go down. He wants to get rid of that Knife Juggler. He does that. He's happy to use his hero power to clear that off the board, and now a lot of those threats are gone. He's taken a lot of damage in doing it, but that's reasonable. He is against a Paladin deck, not a big burst damage deck. He can afford to take some hits early on.
All right, Argent Protector's not really going to do much right now because there's nothing for it to adequately protect. Oh, and Artosis is actually going to go down the aggro route. That's right, so he just used his Blessing of Kings to give his Imp +4/+4. So he thinks that he's got his opponent in a situation where he can swing through and just do as much damage as necessary to finish him off.
Unfortunately, that would leave him in an awkward spot. There's a couple of ways around this, but he elects not to go for that. He's going to take yet more damage. He's going to take another 5 damage hit, which will take him down to 9. That's a little bit unpleasant to say the least. A silence is available in here if he wants to use it. Probably won't silence the Azure Drake. It doesn't matter too much. That +1 spell power is going to make a huge amount of difference. Argent Protector, definitely a possibility on that 5/5 imp. Absolutely. I was perhaps worried about a Sylvanas Windrunner play capturing that imp and turning it against him. But there we go. There's the shield. That's going to knock that out. Nice trade immediately for that. He doesn't even have to worry about taking damage. That pops the Divine Shield. Artosis in a really great spot already in this game.
That's right. And Ancient Allure comes out there for Trump, but unfortunately doesn't have enough to do. Doesn't have enough mana to use it right now, and he just decides to take out that 5/5 imp. But that was still a very good card for Artosis. It got in 5 damage. It took 2 cards for Trump to be able to get that off the board, and that does build Artosis' advantage just a little bit. But now we're getting to that stage. Trump just needs mana. Once Trump gets enough mana, he is going to be able to flood the board with some very, very valuable creatures. He just has to get to that point first.
Yeah, he's got an awful lot of that. He does have the Ancient of Law there. That does have a healing ability, but generally you don't want to use it because it's not the best value. You can get some good card draw out of that. He's already sitting on a slight card advantage over his opponent, but his opponent's got a pretty decent board. All right, so what is he going to do? He could Avenging Wrath here. Probably not the most ideal thing, but if you're looking to try and rush down, that would pop the 4/3, and then it would do extra damage to his opponent. But what's his follow-up to that? He doesn't necessarily have one. So he's thinking about what he can really do here. He could use an Argent Commander to charge in and take out the other Argent Commander, taking the damage on the shield, which would leave him with 3 minions on the field versus 0. That's not too shabby.
Yeah, that certainly is a possibility. From Trump's hand before, he didn't have a lot of options to be able to get rid of those necessarily. And he is going to Avenging Wrath. So this is going to deal 8 damage to random enemies. We'll see where the 8 damage goes.
3, 4, 5, 6, 7... Oh, it misses that one. That's a little unpleasant, but he'll be able to trade out that initiate. Takes his opponent down to 8 here. This is an unpleasant situation because, of course, we know Artosis is sitting on a charge creature in his hand.
That's right.
So it's down to 6 damage. If he goes down to 4, then, of course, that Argent Commander is going to come out and end the game immediately. Trump needs to be aware of that possibility. But he's got this sizable card advantage. The question is, what can he do?
He saw this deck yesterday, so he knows the Argent Commander's around. He just took one out. So there are, looking at his hand right now, let's see, we got Shattered Sun Cleric, Azure Drake, Sylvanas Windrunner, Harvest Golem, Acidic Swamp Ooze. Not a lot, though, that just comes on and makes an immediate board presence or clears the board. That Keeper of the Grove you meant before, or you said before, could gain him a little bit of health back, but it doesn't really help him long term because Artosis can still get in and do a lot of damage. There's just not a ton of options for Trump. He is going to take damage next turn. Just a question of if he can survive long enough.
Yeah, I mean, he will be able to, he could get rid of that 2/2 there with the Keeper of the Grove using its ability to do 2 damage. That's a possibility. Ancient of Law is another possibility with a heal, but as we said, it's not a very good heal. It's not that great. Trump does not believe in Taunt, and he's now regretting that because having Taunt out right now would be great. There's the heal. It's a bit of a desperation play. He obviously didn't really want to do that, but he didn't have too many choices. Lay on Hands comes out for Artosis as if he actually needed any more health to begin with. It's honestly one of the reasons why a lot of players just don't take that kind of healing, because if they're doing well, they don't really need it. It's still card draw, which would help him in this situation.
I mean, that's what I was going to say. Once he gets to 8 mana, that is card draw available to him. There's not really a use for his Spellbreaker right now. Argent Commander gets in and does a little damage, but it doesn't clear the board appropriately. Consecration doesn't give him what he needs right now. Equality will prevent damage, but he doesn't need that. So what you can see is
he's going to have to Argent Commander and go right into it. He's actually going to rush down by the looks of it. And I like this decision a lot, honestly. That's a pretty good way to go for it. He's just going to ignore the Ancient of Law and go right for his opponent. And out comes the Chillwind Yeti. Again, these are all great creatures, but not in this situation. He is being rushed down. It's turn 8. He's already down to 5 health after a heal. If he hadn't healed himself, he would have been dead. So in this situation, if I was Trump, I'd be extremely worried because there isn't a huge amount he can actually do right now.
We could see a Keeper of the Grove silence on the Argent Commander, and then he could take that out with his 5/5 Keeper of the Grove. Or I'm sorry, his 5/5 that he has sitting around, and then also throw on a Chillwind Yeti just to get a little bit more board presence so we can continue to trade with creatures. But again, doesn't really have that great option that's just very obvious. You can see Trump right now just kind of doing math in his head, pointing at the screen. He knows things are pretty bleak right now.
Yeah, he wants to be able to get rid of everything from the board. Okay, Keeper of the Grove, what is he going to do with it? He could either do his 2 damage and remove the Argent, or he can ping off that Divine Shield from the Argent Commander there. It's going to be, well, I mean, if he's going to go after the Commander, it doesn't matter what he uses. It's going to have the same effect regardless. So he's going to dispel that shield, and then he's going to use his Ancient of Law to knock that out. That leaves it with 1 health. and he's still got 4 mana remaining. He armors up here, and he goes right for his opponent. He's left with an ooze if he wants it, but
the problem is that, I mean, anything comes in next. Well, honestly, at this point, if we see a true silver champion, exactly, he might as well put it on the board. But he's worried about if he has to hold that back for a true silver champion, maybe in a couple of turns or something like that, if he can stabilize.
If he can live for a couple of turns, I'd be quite surprised at this point. No, he is definitely in a lot of trouble. However, as we said before, these kind of rush down attempts can burn out because you become very reliant on the cards that come off the top of your deck, and if they're the wrong cards, then you end up stuttering and stumbling over yourself. So out comes the ooze. He clearly didn't want to play that, but he needs creatures on the board right now. Another Spellbreaker, that's not really going to help Artosis at this point.
No, Consecration's not bad, though. It clears Trump's board because he can use his 2/2 and finish that off.
That's not bad. It'll also do 2 damage to Trump as well, which with the armor on theirs, it would take him down to 4 health, which would not be bad. But bear in mind, those 2 Argent Commanders, they're gone. So that charge possibility, that's not really a factor anymore. We should, of course, bear in mind, he's still got a Tyrian Fordring sitting in his deck. Just to be even more irritating, there is a legendary in this deck that could be extremely potent. All right, let's see what he wants to do. He's going to go for Equality rather than Consecration. Oh, he's going to go
Equality, then Consecration.
Yeah.
Boom.
Right. There we go.
And that's really good because that does 2 damage. It completely clears the board. He can swing in with his Argent Protector, get another 2 damage in, and now Trump has to clear the board, otherwise he's dead.
Yeah, 27 health to 2 right now. A Starfire comes out. That is not enough. Trump knows it's not enough. I mean, he'd have to burn a Starfire on a 2/1, which is the worst thing you could possibly do. It's a very powerful attack, and he's got to do it. He knows he's got to do it, otherwise he's not going to live. It does get him another card, which is nice. He can also armor up and then remove. He's going to play his Harvest Golem instead. So, 2 health remain. What's coming out from the top of Artosis' deck? It's a second Lay on Hands. If he's feeling very generous, he could heal Trump for a longer game here.
I don't think that's going to happen, but
it seems unlikely. Artosis is known as a competitive individual. Right, Spellbreaker. This is a good time to use it because then you just end up removing that. This is a nightmare situation right here for Trump. 1 health. It's highly unlikely that he's going to be able to pull out anything. Let's see what he gets. Another Starfire. That's not enough.
Well, I mean, he can Starfire the Spellbreaker, he can trade with one of the recruits right now, and then he can armor up and he can take another turn. So it's at least going to keep him alive, which is nice.
He top decks a Wrath. That's nice.
Good.
Okay. All right, that's pretty good because he'll be able to do the 1 damage, draw a card. So he maintains this sizable card advantage right here. And yes, he can clear the board. So Trump is going to remain alive on 1 health and possibly even armor up to go to 2.
Yeah, I think he will.
All right, well, we have a game on our hands. Trump is back in it for a while. If another Avenging Wrath comes out here, though, he can say goodbye.
Or a true silver champion. If we see that right now, that's just gone.
Master.
All right, he is going to stay alive for longer. I mean, Lay on Hands could potentially draw cards here in a bit because he doesn't need the health necessarily. I mean, getting back the 4 health would be decent. Looks like he's just going to throw out the Imp Master. This is going to give him 3 total creatures at the end of his turn. And that, again, is going to present Trump with some very difficult decisions.
We're going to have to see something like a swipe from Trump here to try and clear this out because even small minions right now will be able to handle him. A claw comes out. That's not what you want. I mean, it does get you 2 armor, which I guess is okay, but you don't really want to be swinging at anything at this stage. So Trump is going to start to do the math in his head and try and figure this one out.
Okay, so we can Dark Iron Dwarf and get the 4 damage onto the Golem and trade with the Imp Master and actually keep the Golem alive. Then he can claw up and he can take out another one of those minions and still retain an additional 2 armor with that and his hero power. So there are possibilities, but again, still no taunt. He's going to survive for another turn. He will get it. We're just kind of waiting on the true silver champion now.
Yeah, it's going to, even if he manages to get momentum back, it's going to take a very long time to kill Artosis because he's sitting on 2 Lay on Hands. So he is not going to die anytime soon. Mega buffs coming out right here. That is a 5/3 Silence Harvest Golem. There's the Claw. There's the 4 armor. He's now effectively on 4 health right now. Takes out the Imp Master, gains huge board control, and is now right back in the game.
All right, things are getting a little crazy here. Artosis just giving a silent nod as he respects his opponent there. We have seen a few well plays going out from both these players so far.
Commander! Top decks the kill. Well, that was pretty well played by Trump to try and come back into this, but Artosis with the coup de grace. Down it goes.
Artosis takes game number 1 here against Trump. That does mean that Trump's Druid deck is now eliminated.